Oh, thank you, Joe. Listen, as we continue to work up here, trying to get the extension of the payroll support program, I also wanted to congratulate all the MECs out there that are working overtime, trying to mitigate the furloughs that could possibly happen. So I know everybody out there is working hard, just as hard as we're working up here. I'm going to get into, Joe, a little bit more details on some of the things in your report and hopefully provide a little bit more in-depth review of that. So it's great to see you all. Despite the circumstances, I look forward to one day when we can once again safely assemble in one location, shake hands, and discuss in person the business of our association. I'll echo Captain Pete in welcoming the PAL Aerospace pilots to the fold. Congratulations, Jack, to you and your team. It's hard to believe it's only been 2 months since we last met. In that time, I've witnessed the continuous, nonstop work of the association at both the national and MEC level as we address the far-reaching, harmful effects this pandemic has had on every aspect of our industry, our profession, and our lives. You don't need me to tell you about the havoc it's wreaked on our association and our members. You're in the trenches, grinding away on behalf of your pilots. Some of you have been personally impacted by the pandemic's economic aftermath, displaced, furloughed, considering retirement much sooner than you thought you'd be. And unfortunately, some of our companies have closed their doors. This meeting will be the last for ExpressJet. Captain Morrow, it's been an honor and a pleasure to work alongside you and your pilot members. I'm confident we'll work together again soon. As you hear from all of us today, everyone has been working around the clock to ensure information is readily and quickly shared among groups and committees throughout our entire organization. Every resource needed has been called up to tackle the effects of the pandemic that has upended our industry and our profession. When we first started to see signs of just how severely this pandemic would harm our industry and impact our members in both the United States and Canada, this national officer team made a vow not to lose touch with each other. We pledged to routinely check in with our pilot representatives and volunteers who work so hard to put in place the exact resources needed to address an unprecedented and unforeseen situation like the one we found ourselves in today. And I am extremely proud to work alongside Captain DePete, Captain Coet, Captain Genovese, and Captain Skalenka each and every day. Every week, we are on coordinating calls, hearing the latest updates on the virus and on the health and safety standards, and checking in with you and the rest of the MEC teams. What can we do? What haven't we done? What haven't we thought of? How can we best help our members? On those calls, I see the unceasing commitment of our pilot volunteers and staff and hear the dedication in their voices when we discuss how best to support our members. I truly can't be more proud. As we discussed at the Executive Board meeting in June, ALPA was the first to recognize the need for a regulatory mandate to follow the guidance of the CDC and the FAA in keeping our aircraft clean and sanitized. In addition, we worked to ensure that crew members were provided with personal protective equipment, and they were notified quickly in the event of a COVID-positive employee or passenger test. With the data we gathered through DART reports that our members submitted, we were able to press for positive change, and we've seen things dramatically improve in those areas. Data remains the lifeblood of our safety work, and we still need to be able to provide the FAA and industry data regarding the issues our members are facing in this crisis. ALPA's COVID DART program is still up and running, overseen by First Officer Paul Ryder, our National Resource Coordinator, and we continue to use ASO pilot volunteers and subject matter experts to address all of our members' concerns. While understandably, COVID health issues has been the topic of the majority of the reports, we continue to urge our pilots to report any COVID-related jump seat, training, furlough, and security concern through the DART system or your own pilot group reporting system. We continue to encourage pilot groups who do not have their own systematic reporting system to consider implementing DART on your property. The Mesa MEC will be the next MEC we will bring on board, joining PSA, Hawaiian, Sun Country, ExpressJet, and Frontier. Captain Hughes was an integral part of the Mesa DART's development, and I know Paul and his team will take great care to get the Mesa pilot groups online soon. As Captain DePete mentioned, we've also seen positive movement concerning aircraft cleaning and sanitizing based solely on ALPA's advocacy efforts. Recently, the RTCA, under the direction of the FAA, formed a special committee, 241, to develop initial guidance and subsequent standards on flight deck and cabin cleaning and sanitizing. ALPA is providing significant resources in this endeavor, including chairing a subgroup and serving as the lead writer on the final document. This group is composed of about 90 individuals across the globe. The group met at the end of last month and is tasked to provide its initial guidance within 90 days, unprecedented. While progress has been made in these several areas, we're still raising concerns regarding how the FAA continues to approve exemptions to recurrent training and takeoff and landing currency that has been requested by the airlines. We're seeing some slight improvements based on our efforts. Recently, the FAA approved another request by Airlines for America, but this time it included a requirement that our airlines conduct safety risk assessments based on our comments. Our Training Council and Human Factors and Training Group are working diligently to prevent these exemptions related to COVID from becoming a permanent new way of doing business. But A4A has once again asked for another extension through the end of the year. The ASO has drafted and submitted comments in opposition to that request, as the data clearly shows that operational issues are occurring from these training and currency extensions. We'll keep you informed of the progress. You'll hear next from Captain Capt about the much needed arsenal of resources we're providing our members who've been or will be financially impacted by the pandemic. But I'd like to highlight some of the achievements of the Pilot Assistance Group and Dr. Quay Snyder, ALPA's Air Medical Advisor, during these challenging times, including addressing concerns related to medical certification and the subsequent medical certification extensions issued by the FAA and Transport Canada. Our air medical pilot representatives certainly kicked it into high gear over the past few months. Truthfully, I can't imagine our association during this pandemic without the Pilot Peer Support Program. While several pilot groups already have similar programs in place, having this national program accessible to every member is tremendously critical during these hyper-stressful times. Having a network of pilot volunteers available to listen and offer confidential, non-judgmental support is an incredibly valuable tool for our members. I want to thank you again for approving the resolution in June that defined the Pilot Peer Support Group as a standalone discipline under the Pilot Assistance umbrella. I'd also like to once again thank Captain DePete for his foresight and leadership as the previous National Safety Coordinator who stood up this program for our members. It's truly made a difference to all the ALPA pilots. Earlier this month, I sent an email to ALPA members urging them to take ALPA's call to action and ask Congress and the White House to put in place a 6-month extension of the payroll support program through the CARES Act. As Captain DePete reported, the engagement has been record-breaking for ALPA, but please continue to urge your members who haven't engaged to do so. It's not too late. We still have time to apply pressure and save thousands of airline pilot jobs and give our industry more time to rebuild for the future. We all know we need that time to continue to work to rebuild public confidence in flying. Captain DePete talked about ALPA's We're Ready for Takeoff initiative and how we've engaged others within the industry to join us. In a recent separate meetings with Boeing and Airbus, we discussed our shared goals in reassuring the flying public that it's okay to return to the skies. Boeing, Airbus, and A4A are all similar campaigns designed to restore confidence in travel in the aviation industry. We're all partners who are invested in the airline industry and working together is the only way we're going to rebound. Because we spent an incredible amount of time and resources on dealing with far-reaching impacts of COVID-19 and the aftermath, it would be easy to let other safety issues fall through the cracks. I'm extremely proud to say that that hasn't happened. Despite the enormously heavy lift we've made as a union to help our members and provide the right resources at the right time, there continues to be issues we were already posed to confront and enter into 2020. I would like to highlight just a few in the remaining time. Our aviation safety team, pilots and staff, have been staying engaged ahead of the safety issues presented by the proposal to develop a 5G network across the U.S. We continue to press the Federal Communications Commission to reverse course on its order that would allow Legato to transmit in a radio wave spectrum that would interfere with satellite communications and navigation bands that include GPS and SATCOM signals. We have many allies in this fight, and ALPA has worked to create a large coalition of like-minded stakeholders and government regulators who have joined together to raise concerns regarding this FCC order. This issue is not over, and we will continue to work together to protect aviation safety from this harmful interference. As Joe mentioned, as a member of the Next Gen Advisory Committee subcommittee, I continue to advance ALPA's position opposing FAA efforts to implement RNAP approaches that require some of our members to fly parallel approaches without a fully coupled precision approach capability. In August, the FAA asked the Next Gen Advisory Committee to develop an industry plan for overcoming the lack of approved vertical guidance, and I'm pleased to report that some progress has been made on this front. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for the Level 7 simulator discussion. In July, ALPA leaders met with the Delta MEC leadership to continue to discuss the airline's increase of Level 7 non-motion flight simulator training devices. Following that meeting, Captain DePete sent a letter to the FAA asking the agency to elevate the priority of a Part 121 rulemaking that would address how these non-motion devices can be used in a training program. While we wait for the FAA to act, we've implemented a DART program for our Delta pilots to collect Level 7 data from pilots regarding their experiences with these non-motion devices. As I mentioned earlier, data is the lifeblood of our safety work, and the firsthand reports we receive will be crucial for our advocacy efforts on the Hill and with the FAA. On the international front, back in 2019, Captain DePete wrote a letter to the International Civil Aviation Organization Secretary General, asking her to stand up a pilot training panel under the Air Navigation Commission. ICAO responded positively and indicated that it would hold an exploratory meeting which took place in July of 2019. ALPA provided a working paper on first officer training and qualifications and has continued to advocate for the formation of that panel since that beginning. Last month, I'm pleased to report ICAO announced the formation of that panel. We submitted 2 nominees from ALPA-I to IF-ALPA to be part of that group, since we were instrumental in the formation. We eagerly wait for the ICAO panel to announce the members of the panel and get to work. And in the midst of this global health crisis, we continue to have a fleet of aircraft that has now been grounded worldwide for 18 months. As Captain DePete mentioned earlier, the FAA recently issued an airworthiness directive for the 737 MAX. The ASO has reviewed that AD and has drafted comments that we have shared with the affected MECs and will submit later this month. Just last week, I hosted an internal ALPA meeting to provide an update on the MAX progress and discuss ALPA's return to service criteria that we developed at the end of last year. It was a productive discussion, and I appreciate the input from the group. One of the next steps in returning the MAX to service is a joint operations evaluation board, which we expect to meet this month. ALPA will have 4 members participating, 2 from United and 2 from WestJet, and they will provide insights and perspectives that only a line pilot can offer. Our aviation security team also continues to keep a watchful eye on those looking to intentionally harm our planes, passengers, and fellow pilots. Preserving and returning known crew member to its original effectiveness and efficiency for our members continues to be a priority. Last month, ALPA met again with A4A and the Transportation Security Administration to continue our discussions on this valuable risk management and time-saving program. There is much work that needs to be done, but I remain encouraged by the continued receptiveness from both the A4A and the TSA to continue our conversations. During this meeting with the A4A and TSA, we also discussed the various early out programs that many pilot groups have negotiated as part of the furlough mitigation plans. I've asked the representation department to summarize those packages, which we will then use to try to retain known crew member and jump seating privileges for the affected pilots, if possible. Another security achievement during this pandemic has been maintaining the Federal Flight Deck Officer Program. In March, the Federal Air Marshal Service closed all FFDO's training venues. As part of reopening these facilities, the service wasn't going to grant a waiver for those who were unable to complete their training by the end of their eligibility period, causing some pilots' deputization to expire. Fortunately, based on ALPA's advocacy efforts, a waiver was granted and training resumed July 1st. With regard to all cargo security, we continue to demand one level of safety. The TSA issued a request for information on complying with upcoming new international security standards. ALPA submitted comments in support of subjecting all cargo to 100% screening before loading on commercial aircraft. With respect to the jump seat, our aviation jump seat team continues to work on enhancements to the ALPA app that will eventually include flight schedules to 8 pilots, with an emphasis on incorporating both all cargo and passenger flight schedules in the app. As we all know, the jump seat is a privilege, not a right, and the pilot in command is the final authority. We continue to remind pilots of the importance of adhering to the airline's COVID policies while using the jump seat, including complying with the carrier's mask policy. Those are just a few updates. There are quite a few more areas within the ASO that I would like to mention, but time limits my remarks. I urge you to stay engaged and encourage your pilots to stay engaged. Taking the time to read ALPA's communications that come out on a weekly and monthly basis will keep your members informed about ALPA's advocacy efforts with regulators in both the United States and Canada, and members of Parliament and members of Congress. I can't emphasize enough the importance of the relationships that are built with government and industry. These relationships give us the opportunity to address our concerns. In my role as ALPA's Political Action Committee Treasurer, ALPA PAC continues to stand strong and support elected officials who protect professional pilots. From January 2019 to present, ALPA PAC has raised nearly $3.8 million from more than 13,700 ALPA members. Despite the downturn, we expect to have a strong year for the PAC, but we know that our pilot contributions will change as our members are affected by the ongoing aviation disruption due to the pandemic. As we work to protect our members and our industry, our PAC is essential, and we continue to press our issues in the political arena. In this election cycle, the PAC has dispersed more than $3.2 million in pilot partisan contributions to Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives. Now more than ever, it is essential that our political outreach stays strong. Our PAC gives to Republicans and Democrats. We are not a one-party PAC. We are pilot partisan. We continue to be one of the most bipartisan labor PACs in the country. And our outreach to all sides of the political spectrum has been critical since the start of this pandemic. A prime example of ALPA's pilot partisan advocacy was the CARES Act, as Joe described, which mandated the financial support that went to our pilots and other aviation employees, not in stock buybacks or management bonuses. So please remind your pilots just how essential our political outreach is. Pilots and their families are facing immense financial hardship, and that's putting it mildly. But even $10 per month to the PAC means ALPA can get in front of the right people, as Joe discussed. And thank you for the continued support. These times have been and continue to be unprecedented. But as I scan the faces on the screen and come here today with the knowledge of all the work that our pilot representatives, volunteers, and staff continue to do on a daily basis, I know that we are prepared. We've been preparing for nearly 90 years. I'm confident that we'll move forward in a position of strength. Thank you.